So Ohio State, new head coach. Obviously, you played him last year, but do you find any similarities when you start scouting them, or is it just a completely different style of play?
Yeah, I think that's the right question. Coach was on their staff with Coach Holtman last year, and we played them the first Friday in November. Anytime you're playing that early in November, it's hard to know what any team is or their style of play, to be honest. So I think Coach got let go maybe Valentine's Day. And then I think they went 5-1 to close Big Ten play down. I think they went 1-1 in the Big Ten tournament. I think they went 2-1 in the NIT and 2-0 thus far. So we've really just tried to concentrate most heavily on those 13 games. I think anytime you get put in a spot like that as a coach, it's hard to know if like you completely throw everything away that you were doing in February. So completely different team relative to Ohio State's commitment to their collective and the talent they want to have in revenue sports. It's evident they've done an incredible job. 2 McDonald All-Americans starting for them. Number 2 is a first-team All-American point guard. We played against him last year, but they are ultra-talented. And I do think Coach Diebler had some part of responsibility offensively last year, and you can tell that's one of many of his gifts and what they're trying to accomplish offensively. But stereotypically, a brand new team in many respects. Number 2 is going to play 35, 36 minutes. Number 1, we know he started there, but last year when we played him, he was at South Carolina. Now he's back. Transfer from San Diego State, number 8. Transfer from Duke, number 13. Transfer from Kentucky, number 4. Transfer from Florida/Kentucky or Kansas State, number 6. Number 0 shooting 88% from 3 to start his college career, which is otherworldly. 21 was on their team last year. He's a returner. He played 7 minutes against us. He's made a great sophomore leap in regards to the minutes he's playing and the role that he has. So different personnel. Hard to know if it's exactly what they were doing last year, because I think some of what they did to close down the year was probably what they had been doing all year.
Do you think their size might pose a problem, or do you think that having Pharrel kind of helps in that regard, if it's an issue?
I think they're ultra talented at all spots. Number 2 and number 1 may be as good a backcourt as you can find in the country at this level, relative to their talent, but also their poise, their experience. They're both older, high-level guards that have played and started. I would say both of those guys are almost at the 100-game start threshold. I think 13 and 4 were both McDonald All-Americans, probably didn't have the role that they wanted last year. And I think they're partly at Ohio State because of an opportunity for an increased role. They're big, not necessarily just inside. They're just big, period. 2 is big, like bully you big, not necessarily tall. But, yeah, it's as talented of a team that will have been here in a while. They're really good.
How unique of an opportunity is to have a Big Ten team, come to Reed Arena and just to see a little bit different teams come in here, and then have a team that's talented you get to host on your.
Yeah, I don't. Again, like everything else that we always talk about, scheduling has morphed into a different model as well too. Trying to predict, are you going to be a quad 1, a quad 2, all of those things. And it's very predictive, like everything else that you guys are looking at this time of the year. It's kind of based on last year's grouping. I do think in our time here, we've tried to schedule home and homes, one on the road, one at home. The Big 12 Challenge was part of what was going on when we first got here, and then we weren't any good, so the SEC didn't let us play in it for 2 years. By the time we came back to life, it was the ACC Challenge. So some of that plays a role in it. What tournament you're playing in plays a role. I had never been to Ohio State until we played there last year. But yeah, I do think that some of what you're saying, when the dates and all of it can work out that way, it's probably a little bit more difficult to get to that point than people realize, but it is for sure a quad one game. Again, it's our second quad one game, I hope, in the first 2 weeks of the season.
I know it's the reality of basketball, but doesn't it seem, or maybe doesn't, is it a little bit odd, or however you might want to say that a game in mid-November could potentially mean so much to what you're going to do in March?
Yeah, and I think that to that point, Olin, like I think that that's how, like so many other categories of the business have morphed. If you only looked at the predictive numbers, which they don't necessarily hold true, it's kind of like the line in Vegas. We scheduled 24 quad one or quad two games for this season. Now it's all predictive, it's before the season starts, but those are the only measurements you have when you're trying to do the schedule. The problem is when you're doing the schedule, you don't know who's going to be on your team, and you don't know who's going to be on the opponent's team. And now there's a lot of non-transparency on who can have a good team, and you want to try to get in the streets to figure out that information. But we're signing contracts specific to this game. We're signing this contract 2+ years ago. And that was before some of all of this has become what it has become. But we have also, Lamar's game was delayed. Texas A&M Commerce's game has been delayed. Changing out of college of the Charleston Classic to play in the Players Era event in Vegas. Like, you're starting to see not just Texas A&M. I know you're familiar with those things, but you're starting to see how everybody's trying to figure out how can we accumulate, even in November, as many what we hope are quad one and quad two games in March. I think it was the first time. Is this recording me?
Yeah, it's a little microphone.
Man, boy, you are Donna, y'all have this at your TV station? No. I know. I thought that was kind of funny. What I wanted to say on that, Olin, is so this stat doesn't matter, but I've been a Power 5 head coach 17 years, and last Monday was the first time I had ever played a road game to start the season. Now, I knew that. I don't ever say that. And then I'm reading Brad's notes, and it's the first time Texas A&M has ever started the season on the road in 20 years. Now, just the stat matters, in my opinion, because it speaks to how things once were. But then the other piece to this is, yeah, we played on the road against a Big 12 opponent in game number one. It's not like we played a non-Big 12 team. And so I think that's the other layer behind the scheduling stuff.
With a year of data points, do you feel like y'all have a good grasp of the change in the block charge rule and more into how you play defense around that?
Yeah, great question. If we didn't have as many returning players as we had, I would change what we do based on the rule. We spent a lot of time in May and June studying that, because how our defense is formulated, We were, I think, second in the country in taking charges prior to the change. And then a lot of those charges, so to say, well, it's a dead ball turnover. That's a good thing. You're accumulating fouls on the offense. That's a positive thing. But statistically speaking, the rule change, I think, has morphed teams that play like us. Some of that's kind of morphed into something else. Can't speak for the other coaches, but that is one of the things that we studied in May and June. And if we didn't have so many returning guys who have accumulated such a volume of reps of what we do when we do it, I would probably morph to something else too. Because we don't have the statistical gain coming as a byproduct of how we play defensively. And so what we have tried to do thus far, I know we've only played 3 games, but we've tried to figure out how to take the lack of that statistical gain and change it to something else without completely going away from our principles, so to say.
Was with Zhuric, how do you think the last couple games, maybe getting his feet wet and playing, coming off the injury, maybe prepared him for a game of this magnitude?
A few things. You know this because you're paying attention, but I'm very thankful that the timing of his injury worked out where his family could see their 2 youngest sons play against one another. I think that's an all-time memory as a parent that I'll never experience because my kids can't play, but if they could do something against one another, that would be cool to take pictures of. The second thing is as I said, post-game after Lamar, probably played him more minutes than anybody else on purpose. I don't think his wind is all the way there. So he's had 3 practices now in 2 games since he's been cleared. Today will be his 4th practice. So I think with each passing day he's getting better, and he's doing extra work and was doing the work allowable when he was hurt. And I think some of the anxiousness of I'm happy to be back on the court, I'm happy to be playing. Not only has he not played, but his teammates have not played with him. So I think there's still some, I don't know if it's a kink, but there's still some reps that we need to flesh out. He doesn't completely know everything in the playbook spot on, but he's a fast twitch brain. He's got a lot of experience, so I think he's handled it really well. I think sometimes he's playing so fast, which is part of his talent, but he's almost playing so fast that, Zoo, I'm not sure you know what you're doing, but the other 4 guys playing with us, they're not sure what you're doing. And in the 2 games you've played, not being negative, the 5 guys that you're doing it against, they probably can't stop that anyway. But that'll be a little different tomorrow.
You guys have played some Big Ten teams over the last few years, including Ohio State. You know, you got a couple more coming up in non-conference play. It's kind of weird to think Oregon's a Big Ten team, I guess, but
It is hard. Like when Tyler asked about whatever he said, Big Ten specific. When I was watching those games, you know, once you get into the season, you really just watch who you're going to compete against. And then once you get into league play, you're just absorbing all of that. But anytime you play a team, you kind of keep up with them
right.
through the scores. Yeah, it's a little different. I have some Big Ten football friends who are saying the same thing you just said. Like Chip Kelly and I are friends, and he was the head coach at UCLA, and now he's the OC at Ohio State, and now they're in the same conference. It's just, again, it's like another thing that's changed.
But I guess, you know, having played a handful of Big Ten teams, they play a different style of ball. Just
Yeah.
What benefits have you seen your team get from playing that kind of style of basketball that maybe you guys take with you as the season progresses, playing, SEC teams per se?
Sure. Yeah, I do think I haven't coached in the Big Ten, but I do think categorically there are some similarities for sure, but I do think that there are some differences. I haven't even started working on Purdue, but we played Purdue one time in a tournament when I was at Virginia Tech, and it is different. Obviously, I wasn't in the SEC at that time, so I think each league kind of recruits too in some ways and kind of evolves into similarities. And I do think there are some differences between us and the Big Ten, but I also think that it's positive relative to the preparation required, playing against those teams. Hopefully you're in a position to play in the postseason, and these reps are important because once you get to the SEC, the differences you may or may not get.
How do you think Solomon has come along since he's been back? He missed some time.
Just okay. Just okay. His was a different reasons than Zoo, but he did miss both Big 12 exhibitions / scrimmages. I think that was a part of it. We need him to be effective. I did not think he was as effective as he can be against Central Florida. I did not like what he was doing on Friday against Commerce. Thought he was better against Lamar, and we'll need him to be really good tomorrow. And he's an important part because he's one of the only guys in our program that can have the versatility on both sides of the ball that we need, while also having the presence on the glass, using his length and athleticism on both sides. So we need him to, like everybody else, we need him to take the next step because he's going to be a big part of what we're doing.
How do you balance the energy he brings with playing within what you want him to do?
Yeah, we call it your shower. You need to stay in your shower. Can't spend a lot of time getting shampoo and conditioner. When So is in his shower, he's really effective. Now, the one thing, and you've heard me say this before, like not to be condescending, you could for sure argue that he has the highest IQ of anybody in the program. I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about the program. You wouldn't know that if he was sitting here because he doesn't know you and he's not going to let you know him. But he is ultra intelligent. And so I do think one thing that he has matured on, that he needed to mature on, is staying in his shower. And I'm not always in mine, for that matter. So all of us want a different body wash, and we're looking at the choices. Olin has a bunch, I would assume, in his shower. He doesn't have just Old Spice. He's got a lot of different ones. But hurry up and get back in your shower. And the faster that Solo can get back in his shower, I think the more consistent he'll be.
Gonna talk to Pharrel in a minute.
You are?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully.
He's a really good kid.
He's shown his athleticism and his strength through the first couple games. Is that kind of skill set where you see the big man position kind of going to in this era of basketball versus, a guy like Joe Jones 20 years ago?
Yeah, I would always take Joe Jones on my team. I still talk to Joe a lot now. Yes, I do agree. The size, the athleticism, he's very agile for someone with that size and with that athleticism. I think he has the propensity to get fouled. It may always be at the rim when he gets fouled, but how he got to the rim is not necessarily Joe Jones-like. Now he's got to be able to finish with the higher points per possession when he does get fouled. He's been really consistent. He made 100 free throws out of 122 yesterday. He's gaining confidence. His stats don't show it after 3 games, but all of his misses were good misses in my opinion. The one thing I think Zoo is maybe for a different reason. So is kind of along the same reason, but has more historical evidence with us. All of this is brand new to Gochi, and he has a really sweet demeanor about him, and he's absorbing all of this at a really good pace. But absorbing it and then executing it, it's happening fast. And tomorrow night against those McDonald All-Americans, it's going to happen real fast. But I do think he has a very high ceiling for growth in how we play. Relative to our conference, I think he fits how this league plays. And after a year of not having who we thought we were going to have at that position, it makes our other players better.